I'm Jack Mahon. I belong to Woodstown Friends Meeting in Woodstown, New Jersey. And I've been here for about 40 years as a friend.
Hi, my name is Abigail Brace Higgins. I'm a member of Mickleton Monthly Meeting. Welcome. And I've been a Quaker since I was a little kid at different meetings over the course of my lifetime.
My name is Joanne Wright, and I'm a member of the Woodbury Friends Meeting. I've been a member here for 2 years, and I was a member of the Philadelphia Monthly Meeting for about 5 years back in the 1980s.
Well, my name is Marilyn Quinn. I go to the Woodbury meeting, and I've been going here now for 3 years at most, 2 years, I don't know.
What is the Quaker understanding concerning Jesus?
People often ask, are Quakers Christian? And of course there's a variety of answers there. I'm a Christian, but we think Jesus was certainly an admirable person and a son of God, a child of God, you might say. So I'll go out on a limb and say, I'm a son of God too. And I guess everybody who might be watching this thing could think of themselves as a child of God. Jesus was a exemplary one, worth remembering, and certainly the history and the image is prized by many, many friends.
I guess it's more or less whatever you want to think of him, but he's known in the Bible as the Son of God, but I personally don't believe that, and apparently I've been told that's okay. So, Jesus was a great teacher, and I think that's basically what I've come away with from my Quaker friends, too.
My understanding of the Quaker understanding of the relationship with Jesus, as is similar to the understanding of the Bible, is that they are Christian prophets and Christian prophets who wrote down their testimony about their religious experience. And the same goes with Jesus, that Jesus had what we take for our principles, Christian principles that we adhere to, but I don't think we have what you could call an ironclad relationship with the idea of resurrection.
Flexible, but as I understand it, we respect the teachings, and the teachings of Jesus exemplify Quaker values, but having a more specific, biblically dictated relationship with Jesus is not required. You can have your own perspectives as a Quaker friend. You can even be an atheist and still agree that the teachings of Jesus are good.
When witnessing contradictions in our lives, what is the best way to handle them?
I guess the best way to handle any contradiction, and I'm not sure what that means, but a contradiction in how I might behave or react to some things, I would say, is take a step back and look at everything again and see whether I've been thinking the right way, or if there's another way even,
I think we find the best way when we come to both Quaker discussion group, which we call First Day School, and in silent worship. So we share our thoughts about the contradictions together, and we get different viewpoints, which help us kind of equalize into a balance. And then we come into silent worship and open ourselves to the light within, which can show us a way to resolve our conflicts and our contradictions.
Contradictions in yourself, like when you realize, might be a little bit of a hypocrite here or something, happens all the time, to just be honest about it and reflective and introspective about healing in yourself in terms of conflicts and contradictions and disagreements, for sure, amongst friends. They happen all the time. It's kind of the core. The point is, being a friend is always be trying to find a way to have peaceful resolution of conflict. If you can't agree, then you must peacefully disagree and coexist respectfully.
You know, I think of failure, and we have standards for ourselves as human beings. Standards aren't always met, and so we think of ourselves possibly as failing in one way or another. But friends have the idea have had the idea of perfectibility, which doesn't mean we're perfect, but it means we can get better. And I can think of contradictions or shortcomings in my own life, things, boy, I wish I had done differently. We claim that we're open to the Spirit, we're open to new ways of doing things, continuing revelation, and revelation did not end with the last page of the New Testament. And yet, like most human beings, we tend to like to do things the way we did them before. And our traditions are very strong, and it's a very hard human habit to break.
Does practicing the testimonies vary from person to person, or are they uniform?
I think the testimonies and their adherence vary greatly from person to person. I just said something about this last week in our meeting for worship. People have all different kinds of ways that they practice their compassion, their care for other people. They might be working at the local food pantry, they might be working at the library, they might be ministering to Girl Scouts or a 4-H club, worrying about the homeless, and it would be very difficult for anybody to turn one of those people around and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing the thing that I am interested in. So some people would place more value upon one testimony than another. A large number of friends would probably rank peace as an important one and put it right at the top. Everybody has their own peculiar and special way that they want to testify, if we're going to use that word, and show essentially compassion and harmony with other people.
Well, I think if you're talking about testimony, it probably varies from person to person. Although we have shared basic values and shared basic beliefs, our experience of them may vary from person to person, as does our expression of them.
I would say it's probably generally varies from person to person. And I forgive my ignorance, but when we say the testimonies, we mean spices, yeah. So, yeah, I would say it probably, at least in my milieu of Quakers, is more of a personal thing.
I think they have to vary because life changes, circumstances change. The whole context of living has changed very much, I think, from the pandemic. I mean, turned the whole world upside down, and I think in the current paradigm, it's essential to be willing to keep your mind flexible to understand other people's vantage points, their lenses, and how they may have changed through which they're watching the world, to come to an understanding of the practices of testimony. You know, it's just like, how can somebody feel that you're both doing good when they're different things? Well, you've got to be aware of where you're both coming from.
Are our Quaker practices in meetings ritual? What defines a practice versus a ritual?
There are rituals in terms of practice that happens over and over again, but it's not ritual in the dogmatic sense where thou shalt always in one way uniformly. It's not the point. But people getting primed for their own spiritual receptivity each have their own rituals for stepping into that receptive state. And some of it we do together. So much depends on your meeting, what you all do together to get into that place, to settle in for worship as a group. But I look forward to that moment when everybody stops shuffling and settles in, and you just hear the ambient sounds of your meeting house. And in a way, that is ritual for me, to step into my spiritual receptive place for worship.
Quakers would shy away from ritual, or at least admitting to ritual, but we sure have our practices. I think the difference is the major Friends practice of silent worship or waiting worship is an admission that we don't know all the answers. So we don't know that we're going to do this certain thing, and that's going to bring us closer to God and God closer to us. We sit and we wait. We listen to ourselves, we listen to others, but the underlying that is the idea that we're waiting, we're open to something new, and as I said, we don't know all the answers. The antithesis, say, to Quaker worship, where we sit and wait, is a worship where things are prescribed beforehand. And say, if we do this, certain things may happen. To me, that's not much far removed from magic. That if we say the right words and burn the right color incense, some effect will be gained. And friends try to shy away from that.
I would say that we have, once again, there's so much more freedom in Friends religion. I would say that we have a shared adherence to a process rather than a scripted, dogmatic set of rules that we have to follow. And one of the things that I like about the Friends religion is that it isn't stand up, do this, sit down, read that, sing this, posted hymnals, and that sort of dogmatic approach to the religious experience.
Well, there isn't much ritual that I have observed, and I think my feeling is that probably every meeting is different to a degree. But I mean, to me, it's more of a practice, and I would say ritual, if there is any, it can change too. So. Depends on who's around, who's talking, who's doing things. So,
what books or resources do you recommend to get closer to God or learn more?
Faith and Practice. I'm looking around the room. I love song. Yeah, I went to meetings where song was part of the ritual practice, that it be part of becoming, in a celebratory way. I sing hymns, so I think flipping through a hymn book is an excellent thing to do personally. But not all friends feel the same way about that or feel the need for it. So I always like it when I'm in a space where worship includes some song.
I would recommend first coming to meeting and speaking to other friends and attending silent worship. And secondly, we have a book called Faith and Practice, which I read. And when I decided to become a member back in the 80s in the Philadelphia Monthly Meeting, I took a class called Quaker 101 that was part of the yearly meeting offering, and that was very, very helpful. Also, there is a Friends Journal that's a free online resource, and there are other online resources as well, as we're participating with now, where you can hear Quakers giving their feelings or their experience of various aspects of the Friends religion.
To be honest with you, I don't really believe in God. I do, but that's another question, I think, coming up. But I do think that for me, the closest I would ever come to any God would be listening to beautiful music. I can remember certain pieces that kind of almost did that for me. The first time I heard Bach's St. Matthew Passion, even the first time I heard The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. I mean, those were major moments. So,
Where to learn about Quakerism? Well, we could sit here and page through our faith and practice. I found that as I said, I've been here roughly 40 years, and in that time, early on, I read through earlier editions of Faith and Practice called the Book of Discipline, or Books of Discipline. And what came to me was that how Quakerism was explained so differently every 20 or 25 years, as a new generation of people had to become responsible for explaining it to others, to the world, to themselves. And I think that would be a great place to start. I think if you read a book of discipline from 100 years ago, it would seem quaint, perhaps, in many ways. But you would see how earnestly those friends wanted to uphold what they saw as the testimony, the important testimony for their time and for their world.
How do you incorporate the spices in your life?
Honestly, I don't think of them. I don't think of the spices, friends, the acronym for friends, testimonies. I don't think of them, I can't say I think of them very often or every day. I think I came here not because I showed up and I said, oh, these people seem to have a good thing going, but I just had this feeling that I was living a certain life, and that life included trying to live a simpler life perhaps than those around me, trying to experience and exude equality to other people, trying to be peaceful in political ways and in personal ways. And all of a sudden, these Quakers showed up, it seemed, and it was just a good spot for me to land. I came down there, and the testimonies in my own life, I felt, were manifested with the friends that I met, and they were real. They were real. It was not a ritualized thing so much as people trying to live a certain way.
Well, the one I've been concentrating on the most is sustainability, because I think about my daughter and her future on this planet. I think about the bugs that I see in the ground, and I want the good ones at least, to be around for a while. And so for me, sustainability also means trying not to use as much plastic as I used to. So there's a lot to think about. And simplicity, as I get older, has gotten even more important, trying to get rid of stuff, and which isn't easy with my husband, who likes to buy gadgets all the time. Just bought an induction stove, and oh my God. Anyway, so, but yeah, simplicity and sustainability are the biggies for me that I think about a lot.
for me, I have an almost 6-year-old. And so teaching him, having teachable moments with him, is one way that I'm remembering my practice on a regular basis. You know, drawing attention to examples and stories that we read, and asking him when there's conflict, you know, how best to deal with it. Would that be done dealing from the spices toolbox? So for me personally, having a young person around always reminds you to think more, see yourself in your own example.
I do and have always tried to live very simply. I don't have 2 cars, I don't have 2 houses, and I wouldn't. And I try to do whatever I can that's friendly to the earth. For example, I do believe in the permaculture approach to gardening, so I don't have a green lawn, I don't use pesticides, I don't use weed killer. I have shrubs and trees which help to keep the moisture in the soil, and I do have areas that I leave as they are so that the creatures that live there can be safe and have some sort of habitat. I like to share where I live with the other creatures of the world. I try not to have too many clothes or too many possessions. I don't have jewelry, I don't have coloring of my hair or expensive makeups or anything like that. I try to keep everything plain and simple, and whatever I have in excess, I try to share with those who don't have anything. In fact, our meeting has adopted a group that helps the homeless people in Philadelphia, so anything I have more than what I need, that's a way I can dispense with it.
How does one convert to Quakerism?
I don't know if you could actually call it converting, but I was born and raised an Episcopalian, and my mother was a devout Episcopalian. And at some point, when I had some qualms about the way we practiced our faith, my mother allowed me to try different religions and to see if I could find one that fit my needs. And eventually, as a young adult, I found the Friends in Philadelphia, and I had read books about Lutheranism and Methodism. I had gone to the Catholic Church. I had gone to the Congregational Church. I'd attended some Unitarian things, and I put it all together, and the one that fit me best was the Friends approach to everything, partly because of spices, which I believe in.
We can laugh about converting to Quakerism. In fact, at least among friends, which I am acquainted, friends living, let's say, in this neighborhood on the east coast of the U.S., we tend to, not to use that word, convert. We say that we become convinced. Probably means the same thing. But people notice that a conversion, a sacramental conversion, where there's a ritual, where there's a baptism, where there are blessings and so on, are lovely things. But they don't necessarily mean that someone's life has been changed. The life goes on. The person continues the same life they did before their so-called conversion. The life that comes from, let's say, from that conversion time, that's the real symbol. That's the real sacrament. That's the real ritual, and it's lived.
Come on over, have a seat, get to know friends. Find they're always glad to see you. They really are. They're always glad to have somebody join, especially somebody who's never been, because we're excited to have another perspective in the mix. And you don't have to become a member right away. It can take as long as you want. You can not become a member and just keep visiting your meeting for a long time and just become a part of the community and the family. Come and enjoy time. You're welcome to.
Gosh, I never even really thought of it as conversion to Quakerism. I know for me, it was just walking into a meeting a number of times and finding that people seemed to have a lot in common with me. and liked to talk about important things. So that was enough for me.
Can longtime attendees of meetings have Quaker funerals?
I really think it would depend. I mean, again, I think this has to do with examining a friend's lenses. What has their path been? Again, there may be a fine line about rules on this. I suspect that they would say probably not. It would probably be preferred that a friend have been a member if they were going to have a Quaker burial. But so much is the way a person has lived their life. If a friend is very much a part of their meetings community and a part of that family, I can't imagine saying no if that was the wishes of that person. I mean, people have very personal reasons for deciding to become members or not. And I said part of what I appreciate about being a friend is having space for your experience to be what you need it to be. For some friends, that involves not becoming a member and feeling, I guess, for whatever reason, they just feel more comfortable that way. I still see them as friends. So I could not, in my heart, say that they don't belong in a cemetery, a friend's cemetery, if that's what they wanted, or having the blessings of a Quaker funeral.
I think if you're a longtime attendee, you could become a member. If you like it, you believe in it, and you've formed a connection with the other people in your meeting, you could become a member. And we did have recently a very good lecture at Salem meeting where the man who gave the lecture talked to us about end-of-life procedures and ways of being buried that were friendly to the earth. And I think that you could have a friend's funeral that way.
Sure. So let me repeat the question. Can longtime attendees have Quaker funerals? And when we address that, we're looking at they're not members of the Society of Friends. They've never applied for membership. Membership's important, but I have been to a number of Quaker funerals that were not held in a meeting house, that were not conducted by friends, but people said before they died, this is what I want when I die. This is what I want people to do. This is what you can do after my death. In fact, I have overseen a couple of those. They weren't friends, and they weren't in a meeting house. I can't remember where they were. I think one was at a golf course. So yeah, certainly, it's as I said, it's not the ritual. It's not the ritual that counts. It's what people do. It's the life that's lived.
Whoa. Well, I'm not really sure what a long-time attendee would be, but there are people, I guess, who just like to attend. I don't know, and you could go from one meeting to another and just attend. I would think that it would be fine to have a Quaker burial.
What should you do if you want to attend, but there are no meetings near you?
Well, I think if you're a practicing Quaker, what you could do is you could do your own time set aside to do silent worship, which is a form of meditation, and you could continue reading. I've just bought a book about the life of George Fox, the founder of the religion, and you could do readings like that that would help you to gain other insights and other doors into the religious practice of the Society of Friends, and you could do silent meditation on your front porch.
Well, of course, we have all of the Zoom stuff now, which is amazing. But even if there is not even Zoom, and I have been in places where I can't get it, then I just spend Sunday morning doing something I like. I don't know. That's and something that I find is good for somebody else in my family, or good for the environment. I mean, that's how I always used to use Sunday mornings when I was working, and I wasn't even going to meeting. So,
Well, there are many now that you may get on Zoom to check out. I would say, though, that it is harder to probably truly appreciate the experience of being a friend in worship for the first time on Zoom. If there isn't one near you, I'd say it's worth the trip. Go to the closest one you can, and you'd probably find hospitality to spend the night if you needed to with somebody, because friends are like that. I am a big advocate of inclusion on Zoom for many reasons, but I admit that I have a lot of background and nostalgia and experience of being a friend in a meeting house in person, having that shared experience with people in person, and I do think it's essential and valuable and important. And you would probably need that to truly understand in the experience at least at some point, in your journey. Go out of your way to find one. Do it in person. And if they have Zoom offered, you're always welcome. Certainly at Mickleton, you are. So.
The meeting house I'm sitting in now was a neighborhood meeting 200 years ago. People walked or they traveled by horse. That's different now. It's more intentional. People travel good distances. They get in their car and they travel a good distance perhaps to come to this place, because this is the place that they wish to be, and this is the place in which they wish to worship. So it's more intentional than just geographical. But maybe there's no meeting around. Well, anybody could Zoom with any number of monthly meetings on a Sunday morning or a weekday. They could be in the U.S., they could be around the world. And I know people who do that, as well as come here. Friends are encouraged, we know, at a meeting for worship, there's no plan. There's no order preordained. People should not come primed to say something or do something. But that doesn't mean that you cannot prepare beforehand. And people prepare by reading, meditating, praying, to get into the right frame of mind, perhaps. So, obviously you don't need other friends or other people to do that. But you are missing the, I think, the real Quaker experience. Here's what I'm not saying. People will say, I worship God by walking in the woods on Sunday morning. I don't go to church or to meeting. I like to sit on the beach. That's how I worship God. I like to get out on the golf course. Okay. Well, I think these are wonderful sentiments. But if I can be selfish, the person walking in the woods or sitting on the beach is not helping me. come to God or experience that. And obviously other people aren't helping them. So we joke about meetings, but I think the thing that makes Quakers is that they go to a meeting. We meet. And that's irreplaceable. So I feel for those outside of the radius of a friend's meeting, the comfortable commuting radius. And I hope they find something. Oh yeah, get the computer, get a link to Pendle Hill or Greenwich, New Jersey, and worship with those guys. I don't know where you get these questions from, and they're not. So I was just, they're not the questions I would have expected. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're good questions.
Yeah, they're from. There's a website called Reddit.
And this is where they're coming from?
Yeah,
Reddit? They're real questions that people have asked.
Yep. I think some are like curious, and some are kind of new attendees, and they're from all around the world, probably most of the U.S. But yeah.
Interesting. Okay.